Lothar, my favorite person in Germany. Welcome to
Oh,
Suzie Sayz. It's so good to have you online.
Susie says in Germany, that makes this my world really small, really little. And everyone else who's been on Susie says is so much bigger than Lothar in Germany. Oh my God. And we're talking about consciousness. Consciousness is all
We,
encompassing. It is not little one inside border kind of experience.
no, it's not. But for those of you who don't know, this special man I met probably 8 years ago.
Is it?
I think it
Okay.
is. Somewhere around there, 7, 8 years ago.
Hmm.
And Lothar is sitting in Germany. Suzie is sitting in South Africa. And this man, being gentleman, still being, has been the most incredible mentor to me on my journey of finding out who Suzie is. And so we decided today to chat about consciousness and with everything going down in 2020 and this entire world of ours, as we know, is upside down. There's a whole talk and whole experience going on in the world, Lothar, of this energetic awakening and consciousness of people around town. And I think a lot of people don't actually even know what it is and what it is all about. So that's why we've been lining up our telephone call, trying to line it up for days now, and finally get it on a Monday
It's
morning.
a summer day over here, and although it was overcast this morning, now the blue spots of the sky with the sun peeking through over there is coming through. It's pretty much a picture that we could use when we talk about consciousness. Consciousness, the blue sky. Although, what does the blue sky sit in? It sits within the darkness of space, galactic space. The universe sits in what? And so if we go deeper and deeper in asking what is becoming aware of what, we will eventually come to a point where there is no more form, where there is no more time, where there's simple beingness. And that, of course, is not individualized. And that makes it very easy for us being spatialized as a human being in a human form with a personality, with history, with the genome, with the global history of planetary development and all that. And humanity has come here, and how was humanity seeded? How did it all get started? How did life get started in the first place? All of that. Many people have given many different answers depending on their likes and dislikes, thinking about life and what it actually means. And of course, depending on the cultural background, on the religious background, on what I might like to believe or what I despise, I should believe. All of that comes into one pot. It's being mingled. And when you turn that pot around and you dish out it into the realm of the five senses, what are we actually experiencing? We will have 7 billion plus different kind of experiences, and everyone is right while everyone is wrong. And so we cluster into groups of beings and, oh, I like this, or I don't like that. You're my friend or you're my foe. And so we are trying to survive in meaning, trying to survive in being right. And also, oh, are there ETs part of this? Are there angels part of this? Are there gods and goddesses part of this? Have we evolved out of the animal kingdom? How has the animal kingdom evolved? And of course, we know from technology and beautiful TV programs how science looks at life and how life has sprung, how the first impulse of energy, of plasma, of gases, then solidifying, and then the rain and the water and life springing from inside the water, and then creeping onto land and all this and that, and the volcanoes and the earthquakes and upheaval and beautiful periods and different civilizations, different planets. We talk about Maldek. We talk about the planet where humanity was seeded before and they fucked it up by blowing it up with nuclear energy. Then we talk about Lemuria, same thing. Humanity has come from creeping creatures, all the way to science and religion and science as one, and again nuclear energy, and again blasting part of the planet into pieces, upheaval, tsunami, disappearance. Then again, the shift of the tectonic plates and another land that rises, and then we have Atlantis, and then same thing. Humanity starts from scratch, and then again comes to an understanding of the tiny, tiny, tiny little nuclear, little tiny powerful thingies, and then they combine them again, and human greed comes in again, friend and foe, and again, I need to destroy you because you're enemy. And so once again, then tsunami, earthquake, fire, volcanoes, and the like.
Just a vicious circle.
And so we have humanity, our current humanity.
Yeah, it goes round and round.
Going round and round, yet we're talking about races and root races. We're talking about consciousness development in human races and human beings. Now, when we talk human races right now, we have this Black Lives Matters kind of thing going on. Of course, white life matters, children life matters, animal life matters, all life matters. And if we just compartmentalize it, then we go into history and we can point finger and say the fault is this, the fault is that. So this can go on and on and on and on. And then we, of course, when there's a time with no wars, then we can develop spiritually, and we have the esoteric movement rising, we have the Christian movement rising, we have the Muslim movement rising, we have different agendas. The big Christian and Muslim agendas are we need to conquer the rest of the world, and everyone has to be a Muslim and everyone has to be a Christian. Really big war going on under the surface. People don't really know. They have their everyday economic experience, and yet there are these forces trying to make one mesh of beingness, one race of humans, but under the guidance of the Pope or the Mahdi, and so forth. And of course, then all the major religions are waiting for the second coming. The Kalki, the Mahdi, the new Pope, what have you, the new Christ, not the new Pope, the new Christ, and all of that. Now, the second coming of Christ is, are you still there? Yeah, the second coming of Christ basically is not a physical human being, although there are announcements of the next master, Maitreya, coming, all even to the point where the Maitreya has already arrived, meaning there are world teachers, there are global teachers. When you talk along the lines of the Great White Brotherhood, and you have the ascended masters, those who on planet Earth have done their homework, have done a lot of forgiveness and releasing and letting go. Because you've got to understand one thing, being in the human form, is that there are only two ways that we can go. We can either add or we can delete, meaning we can add powers through prayer, through meditation, through exercises, through yoga, through breathing exercise, what have you. We can increase power. We can have healing powers. We can have powers to make the body levitate. We can bilocate, trilocate, and come up in many different locations at the same time with a physical body that's filled with blood and fluids. and we can become more and more powerful, and therefore the chance of being corrupted is really, really high. And only very, very few of the many billions are moving through this process without being corrupted. And they then have the opportunity to ascend. There are some wonderful stories of people who ascended, and what does it actually mean? We know in the Christian storyline that Jesus on the cross, how he died. And of course, the Christians say, specifically the Catholics say, he died for our sin. You know, he dropped his blood for our sins, which of course others say is utter rubbish. He had to die, yes, he had to go through this process, because the next step, the resurrection and the ascension, is actually the key process for us at this time, to understand that we are more than just human form, and that we are more than just the normal human doingness.
And I think I want to ask you there, because that's something that has been so, you know, this whole journey of figuring out who oneself is, you know, which starts on probably a self-development course or a book or something, triggers searching for more. It's this constant search for more within oneself. And one of the things you've taught me, and over the years to have is I didn't really know what was going on inside me. I was just seeking more from within, as opposed to exterior stimulation for me. And this whole awakening, or this whole understanding, has made, and we can maybe touch on this, Lothar, has made me one of the biggest ahas, which we are not taught. We have not been shown it. We've been so conditioned away from it, is that we are spiritual beings come into a human form to have an experience, and to experience every experience of life, to be, like in my case, to have an experience of being a female, a girl, a little girl, of being a mother in the end, of being a daughter, of experiencing everything within me. But
thank you for expressing it in this specific way. And I'm jumping in because you're moving away from that point again. And that is, you said that you are within your body. And the body is within our consciousness. And the first shift in thinking, even in imagination and in experience, is to move away from I am inside my body. Therefore, yes. I'm little and I'm confined.
100%. But to have the awareness of the spirit of your greatness within that body.
Yes, we, because of the five senses, how we experience the five senses, we would direct the experience within, yet the experience is outside of the physical body. It's all involved, it's all together, we experience it, but who we truly are is not this physical form. And of course we say we go within, and the question is, what is the direction of the within? Now I'm holding the phone, so I can't really use both of my hands to show my finger position that I like so very much, where it is inside and outside equally and the same. So if we don't get lost in the outside, if we don't get lost in the inside, then that brings forth some stability. And in the course of our conversation, we might touch a few things about this. I'm sorry about the noise. Somebody is mowing the grass around the corner. Okay. So we are mowing our grass of human thoughts and emotions to come to the point of stillness. So eventually this machine will shut up and we will have an experience of silence, of stillness. And that is a nice pointer.
Absolutely. No, you know, Lothar, I think this, or not think, this entire process of what is going down in the world today,
silence.
You got your silence. Silence in the world today, but this whole process of there are so many more and more people becoming consciously aware of being a lot bigger and a lot more than they, and certainly in my beingness, is for how many years I felt like I existed just like a body. Like it was, I felt so detached from everything, like even detached from me, like who was I, who am I? And to find one's identity, until you actually have gone and dug in to come out, basically, you have to do the journey. Everyone goes through the journey, don't they? At some point in their life.
Has, yes, and each
has
one
the
of
choice
us
to.
has the choice and has their individual coloration of the journey. And again, I wanted to finish the beginning point of the two. One is where you're adding all the powers and you're becoming more and more and more and more powerful. And the second side is forgiveness. And so to become less and less and less of specifically the subconscious and the unconscious accumulation of millions of years of experience in the body, outside of body, in body, outside, all kinds of points of focus in consciousness, different layers of consciousness, where we are adding and adding and adding. And if we don't, you see, input, output, if there's no output, if there's only input, all we do is go kaput, you know, because it's overwhelming. And if you keep eating, 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 and you don't use the loo, then eventually something will happen to the body, you know. So there has to be a very balanced input and output. And these days, we have all the means that we need in order to learn how to forgive without even creating a new illusion and a new being stuck in creation. There are some very challenging thought models that allow us to understand that life as we experience it through our five senses isn't really happening. It's like when we go to movie theater, what's happening right now between you and me right here with this technology, we're looking at screens. And the same thing is when I turn my face away and I look into my garden here and I see all the green and the trees and the brushes and what have you. It's all like on a screen. And although it looks 3D, and of course it is 3D because I can touch it, I can, you know, go inside the tree, I can go inside the bushes and all, what have you. It appears that life is that has this elasticity and it feels very much alive and real. It's growing, it can grow or die. But what is life really is beyond that. And so very, very few people even have the capacity of experience and being even aware that really we have to go into the no thingness and to experience the none of the created creation, which I as a human say is creation and is reality and is life, really is that. And when I dive into the no thingness and go through the stages of that, do I understand that the individuation of I, Lothar, I, Suzie, I, everyone else, in separation from one another, the truth of the matter is it's only one consciousness expressing through myriads of forms. This is really a thought that is mind-provoking, and yeah, you know, this is fantasy, this is philosophy, you know. Yet when you have an experience of oneness, when you have a moment of enlightenment, when you have a moment of awakening, then it is very clear and very obvious. And so there are only two things that we're afraid of. One is the fear of God and one is the fear of death. Now, death isn't really happening, it's a transition, but the way of dying can either be pleasant or horrible. And usually we think of it in the horrible sense and we suffer and it's pain and oh my God, you know, this is so bad. And then what's waiting on us? You know, will we be punished? Will we be the prodigal son that will be welcomed at home and there will be a celebration? Hey, you're back again. And what does it mean that I, my ego, my personality, dying and my eye sense is disappearing, and suddenly there is no more sense of Lothar, but only a sense of being. That is a huge bridge that very, very few people in the past have crossed. More and more people are lining up to cross that. So we are living at very, very fascinating times, that even this knowledge, this information, knowledge opens up our ability to fantasize, then to experience, and then to being it.
Mm. Yeah, it's a special, special time, and it's a very different experience to the 9-to-5 life that we've been programmed to believe that's all existence is.
As you
And
say,
that
9 to 5, the machine starts rumbling again. Until this moment, it was all silent, talking about these things. Now you talk 9 to 5, and we talk about the noise.
Bring it back
the
into
noisy,
exactly.
the noisy life, right?
So the 9-to-5 lives that we've had, the conditioning that we've had, is such a mask to what we as beings are truly, who we truly are. And as you say, very few, and if we speak of Jesus Christ, you know, everyone looks at him as a religious, you can put it in a religious, but as a being, all he was an enlightened being that was connected to himself, I one, and connected to earth, connected to source. He was connected and open to receiving what are his gifts purely from him being. And now
you say connected. You say connected, and again, I'm jumping in. The point of when you are connected, it means you are separate from something that you connect to, and there is no such thing as being separate.
Wrong
so
word.
He is, well, it's no wrong word, it's in our conversation, because others are going to watch it and they have their own perception of idea conversation. So oneness that is not divided into more and separateness is what is so challenging for us to understand. We can say, okay, he is connected to earth. Earth has her own consciousness, her own she is a logos, she is referred to as a she, whereas the sun is a he, beingness, the logos of the sun. So all this is still separation. Yet when we talk about consciousness and the awareness of consciousness, it can only point us in the experience of oneness. And there is no more such thing as being connected to earth, to life, to creator, to creation, and all that. None of that. You only are. Sorry if I jump in, and because you're giving me beautiful ways of clarifying it, if there's such thing as even clarification.
So being this oneness now, actually, it's like a whole different person, isn't it?
It stopped again. Oneness is silence.
And driving the music here, driving the lawnmower manually. Okay, let's stay. Sorry, turning a corner.
So the point here is this more, when it only stops because it's full of grass again. It's if you see, it makes noise, it accumulates, then it needs to shut up because it needs to be emptied again so it can be filled again. So it's a perfect way of describing life. We live life, we add and add and add and add, and then we need to throw up. We need to let it out again. We need to spew it out again to be empty again.
Yeah, and I think that adding up is basically life. I mean, we are born, when we're born as a being into our families, we are now with the average of the environment that we're born into. So the belief systems, the everything about us, we're suburbs, countries, race, religion, everything. We are now built or born into an existing environment. And as humans, we're instructed right from the beginning to be human doings as opposed to human beings. And a human doing is heading off. I'm scared your lawnmower is going to start again. Is heading off to that, 9 to 5. No. And the doing almost against the grain, hey Lothar. I mean, it's very few people actually get to live their true dreams of the being within their, the doing within their being. And society has conditioned everybody to have the 9 to 5s of you are of value externally. You have to go off and get it, and go and be a regular person, so they say, and boxed, as opposed to being that being who actually is living their talents and sharing with the world their passions. How many people actually follow their passions? No, go get a job first, get your money, and then you can do your hobby on the sideline. And we weren't wired like that. We were wired and gifted with these inner talents that are, in our doingness as humans, get suppressed.
We are changing.
We're changing.
We're changing,
now
in the sense that 95 is through Corona pandemic is dying. People are losing their jobs, and office space because of home, how do you call home office, and digitalization of the work. So that is already changing. 9 to 5 is not much of a reality anymore. Time frame is expanding, and either they extend the shopping hours, or suddenly it's available 24/7, 365 because of the internet and so on. So the transition is already happening. And now because of Corona and the lockdown, we're experiencing limitation there. But now we do have the internet, as long as we don't have this very much proposed EMP, the big China war against the USA with EMP, which is in all the news right now, where then it means we're going back to caveman. If that happens, we go back to caveman. And so the next step of transition from the internet is to the internet. And then we start having our conversation again. How can I connect with me? How can I connect with who I am? And how can I, through the internet, connect then with you inside me and me inside you as one, and still have a conversation that appears to be from me to you, and yet in consciousness it's one, and yet as a single entity within the consciousness, and this seems to be a contradiction to everything I'm saying, appears to be one talking to the other, when in reality is one talking to the same. And so that's a mind bender.
No, it is a complete mind.
It's in development.
And it's an understanding. I mean, I had no idea. I really didn't. I didn't know what people were talking about, awakening and consciousness, etc., etc. It was only when and through your guidance, and by, having someone who had experienced all of this, you've guided me, and it's guided me into the being of, and this Corona was the biggest gift ever, was to slow everything down and actually go sit down and be, as opposed to do. And to be told when you're a doer your entire life, or you're waking up, well, what should I go do today? Like, even down to, should I go do the dishes, or do, you're doing, and then you're doing it with a energy field or an attitude of, oh, I don't want to do the dishes, or I don't want to go to work, because it's a doing, as opposed to what you taught me was then to slow everything down and to spend a lot more time quieter and off technology and in nature, where you actually are just with yourself, because there's a whole person going on inside Suzie. It's not just me. There's someone else in there, and it is me. And when I first realized that there was someone else inside me, and how I spoke to her, Lothar, and that being inside is actually, if it's me, it's my she's my best friend, supposed to be, not this person I was speaking to appallingly. Like I could really, when I had this awareness, and I think that this whole conscious journey has been an awareness of things around and within me that I didn't even know existed. But that first awareness was that there was the Suzie inside, another voice who actually needed some loving and needed to be told she's safe and she's okay and she is loved by me. And it was that whole journey then of going to meet her, find her, be with her, not fight her, and be able to be in, as you love the saying and you remind me very frequently of, slowing down enough where literally I stopped. And then where I was able to look like an intersection of your life and choose my thoughts, number one, what I was going to say that was coming out of my mouth, because whatever came out of my mouth was now going to manifest into a reality. But that stopping and slowing down has really forced a lot of people during Corona now they haven't been able to do anything. So you've had to find your being and find what is in this being and meet this being in order to come out into the world of doing and being who you're meant to be, with those talents, those passions that excite you. Life should not be a slog. It should be fun. And that's been this big awareness, this big consciousness of how unhappy I was doing, but how I had to go re-meet myself and come back from a whole different angle and realize, wow, it's another
journey. Yeah, it's another journey that you are describing that has come up some 15, 20 years ago when we started talking about the inner child, and that there is even an inner child. What does it mean? The little Suzie, the little Lothar, and how that needs to be caressed, how that needs to be given understanding that it's safe and secure and that it's fine to grow up. There will be no instances of attacking. There will be no instances of illnesses. There will be no instances of needing to be afraid of the outside world there. It's like, you know, you as a mom of two boys, you were pregnant twice and you were taking care of your babies before they were born. And so your inner little Suzie, the inner Lothar, then received attention and then received, first of all, being at all, that there is some such thing as an inner being, an inner Suzie, inner child, to grow up, and then to have that, if you will, grow up. For instance, you might, I don't know whether you know, in the deep sea, there are anglerfish. Anglerfish are the ones, the big little fat fishes with this little antenna, the little light they have on this little finger antenna on top of their head to have a tiny bit of light in utter darkness. So when a male anglerfish and a female anglerfish meet, which is very, very difficult down there in the pressure and the darkness, but when they meet, they connect in such a way that their physical forms merge into one body. He loses his eyesight and it's going to be her eyes that he is looking through. And so they become, for a period of time, they become like a jellyfish where the first one merging with the other is becoming see-through. You can actually see through the body, and all the organs and everything merges into one. That's a very nice thing that happens in nature, and we can, through technology, you know, submersibles and filming technologies, we can suddenly, you know, we're on top of the ocean, if you would, but we can now gradually find out, as we're digging deep in the darkness, utter darkness of depth of planet Earth, we can then see, oh, it's already happening. And this is a beautiful example of what's happening with us when I am merging with my inner child and when the inner child grows up. And then, of course, on the outside, everyone who is going to watch this conversation, he or she will have had a period of falling in love, whether they are heterosexuals, homosexuals, transgenders, what have you. but there is a moment of yearning. I'm yearning for you. And when there's the first kiss, and when there is the first merger, and then you want to have this orgasmic experience again, because this orgasmic experience is actually not happening down there. It appears to be down there, but it's something that's happening in our brain, and it has to do with the neurotransmitters, and it has to do many technical things that give us this experience. But once we've had this experience, we then search for it. We want it again because it was the sweetest, it was wonderful experience of oneness. So we start chasing after it, and then we tend to forget what actually led to it. And what led to it was innocence. Innocence meaning I had never ever had the experience before. So therefore in my brain, I am not conditioned to compare my experience with previous experiences. So if I've had a merger between myself and a female body, and then inside it's stored, the memory is stored. So I'm having a second experience. And if I cannot completely let go of any attachment of memory, of wishing and wanting, and being fresh and crispy and innocent to have that next experience again, it will never happen. And that's why so many relationships, and now you know what's coming, move into relationships. And if you are strong enough to get out of the relationship, the next level of relationship will be so much deeper, so much stronger, so much wiser, so much more open, and so much more allowing, you know. So
yeah,
we always.
Yeah, it's powerful stuff. I mean, you think of it, how many relationships seek the external approval and happiness from the other, as opposed to realizing that, and I think that was probably my biggest aha and take from all of this, was realizing that on an energetic level, we're all these individual beings, even though we are one, but we are an individual energy field, and that we are in charge of it. We are in charge of the steering wheel of this energy field from the inside. And as an individual, like I've really, you know my journey over the last so many years of really, and especially the last year, even a couple of years, of how I really understood the working on me from the inside out, true to me, like really. I mean, it dug deep in order to realize that my energy field started with how whole and how purposeful and how peaceful I felt from the inside, and how that fun frequency, that fun childlike innocence that lifts everything up and adds the yellow, look at your shirt, adds that spark to one's being, is the essence of it, is everything that is good that happens to us. Normally happens when we're bouncing around, fooling around and being in that childlike innocence, because we were born in that. As a younger child is more innocent than an adult who's got more conditioning. And we know how to be a child. We just choose not to, or choose to. And the more we can be a child and not be so serious about things, we become this whole new being. And I've completely morphed myself from being very sad inside, from conditioning, and from your inside oxygen gets like twisted off of happiness until you realize only I can do this, instead of me looking outside for the bits of happy and here and there and there. And for a successful relationship now, I hear the bird. Oh, what is there?
I think we call it Meise. And it's very interesting. It's so close to, we're very peaceful here. Now, and this is the one thing that it's a beautiful pointer again. Either I can attain powers, I can work on powers on all levels that we have touched in our conversation so far, or I can have peace of mind, I can have peace of heart and peace of beingness. peace of heart, peace of mind, peace of beingness, can have the experience of a lot, and the next one's right there, can have a lot of abundance, physical abundance, or it might look very poor looking from outside, you know, being seen by others and say, oh, what a poor chap, what a poor girl, you know, doesn't have any money. But there's something about you where people, even through the internet, say, what is it that, why do I feel what I feel when I connect with you? And you're in Cape Town, I'm in Frankfurt, there's some 10,000 blah, blah, blah kilometers away from, in distance, if that's the distance. I've covered it many times, but I don't know by heart. And so how is it possible that a state of beingness, because eventually we will have to go away from the philosophic approach, from the theoretical approach to what is the experience? How can an experience actually be experienced? How can it be induced? How can it be started? And how can we go into the value of living awake? So the less garbage I have inside of me, being in the body or in consciousness, the lighter I am, meaning that that innermost vibration of love, and now we need to talk about love and peace go together, and that just oozes out. That basically is. And this is what everyone is yearning. When I talk about the merger between a male and a female being, whether it's human or animal, what have you, when we want to have that one moment of 8 seconds of that deep experience, how can I prolong it? You know, how can I touch base in such a way that it is my innermost beingness? You know, so that's the journey. That's the journey that we embark on all different kinds of levels. Just yesterday, I received an emergency call where we're all called for attention, where the next major catastrophe and Corona was only the tipping toe, tipping the toe in the water, as it was explained to me yesterday. Creating fear again. Oh, the next thing is so much bigger on a global scale, so much more destruction, and we need to have 3/4 of humanity, the planet to survive. All of that now expects tsunamis. We can't get this, that, and the next thing. My question then is, do I need to go into fear and into expectation of this to happen? Or am I strong enough to go within and see what is the fear that I have inside when this kind of a devastating message comes to me saying your life, and not only your life, but the entire planet is endangered. And we will all be, we abolish life. And the question is, how much am I aware of my consciousness or the consciousness that I'm attached to, that I am, when this body is being demolished? Of course, the big question, what happens when you die? What happens after death? Where will I find myself after death? It's a whole different subject that will be another discussion, another conversation that can lead into hours of conversation, because there is so much information available when it comes to what happens after death, and what is the significance of death? Where do I find myself after death? And of course, I find myself after death where I was before death. If I am fearful before death, I will be fearful after death. The problem is I don't have a physical body anymore through which I need to express it, so I find myself in a realm with others who are equally fearful, and then I find myself in hell, blah, 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 which again is just another level of illusion. It is real to be experienced, but honestly, it doesn't even exist at all. But this is the mind. This is ego. Ego wants to experience itself as being alive and being in charge and needing to guide me through the how do you call it? the maze. You know, we remember how I once told you about when you said, oh, this is amazing, that is amazing, because when you start being full of joy, you know, you use big words. Oh, this is amazing. I told you, well, you know, you find yourself in a maze. So how within a maze do you get to the point where you can either enter or exit it? But when you're inside it, you're just what? You're amazed. Yeah. So how to stop all of that and to find the reality of who we truly are. And then I'm going to make a final point, and then whatever you want to bring up, please. But what is the story behind the story, behind the story, behind the story? And then we will find that all of this, billions of years of expression of creation, has happened within what we would say a second, and then it's done. It's back with creator, if there is such a thing as creator. And for us, being separated from oneness into the many, we of course experience billions of years of involution and evolution. And right now we are in a spiral of evolution, ever bigger, ever bigger, ever bigger. Therefore, it's fantastic again that we're around today. But when we go, who is talking? Who is thinking? Who is observing the thoughts? Who is observing, or what is observing the space before the thoughts happen? And it's available to us now. We can live it today. We can have that experience of that being at peace, out of which in every moment is a true, new, fresh, crispy, innocent moment of life expressing itself at the highest expression of love. And yeah, we can share, I don't know how many stories of how it expresses in life. And thankfully, there are many people who have described it through their books and through their open experiences, sharing in programs and the like. And we have beautiful movies about this. So as devastating, as fearful it appears where humanity is going, and the breakthrough of love is just overwhelmingly available.
And it's interesting you say that, because, you know, talking to people, they're saying, you know, how do I get through this? Like, I'm an emotional mess. I'm like worried about the outside world, that job, the income, the all the doing stuff, and the fear factor of survival because you're not doing, or perhaps of losing the job, etc. The worry is fear. Anything that you're worrying about, whether you worry about a next meal, or whether you're worried about a job, or you're worried about somebody in your family who may be ill, or just worried about, worry goes towards the fear. And what, Lothar, with now people who are obviously listening to this are on a level of awakening, on a path of realizing that there is more from the inside that can influence one's outside life. In fact, all of inside influences outside life. And then I realize they are in control of their outside world because of what's going on in the inside world. What in these moments, and this moment that is, talk about, yeah, there are some pretty rough times coming up in the next couple of months, in the next moment, it doesn't matter, in this year 2020, you know, what can it dish up? Everything is about how the being reacts and how the being drives, how I drive myself now emotionally, because everything is in the emotion. What can you share? What can you, I just want to say, what do you suggest? I mean, what do we do? Like, I'm aware of it. but there are more and more people that aren't, and there are more and more people that are starting to become aware. So those of us who are watching this realize we have to anchor ourselves really in our, and I've been saying it for how many years now, in our happy. And I realize that I have to look after me at a core level. I have to be so meticulous about my thoughts. It's easier now because obviously I've been working at it. It's a muscle and it's a habit that one forms, and you get stronger every day. But what can you suggest for all of us? Like what can people do to anchor themselves in these times, in this moment, so that they can direct themselves into this new world and on a happier, calmer level that we talk about, that inner love? What is an easy tool? What's something you suggest on this path that all these wonderful awakening beings are on?
Shut up.
Yeah. So bossy. Yes, exactly. That's the answer.
That's the answer. And I have to say, I'm sorry, I'm going to pop this bubble of yours. Unhappy includes unhappy. Everything that is in this realm of creation is coming in pairs. You know, good, bad, happy, unhappy, and all of that.
Exactly.
So the moment we still our thinking process, and I shared with you how that can be done, how that can be helped. There are many different ways, you know, follow your breath, and so that's a beautiful way, using your finger for the third eye, or touching the space between your eyebrows, or visualizing that space, the pituitary gland is in there, and then something will happen. Those are outer things. Just you can, in India we have this tradition with mantra, where a word or a sentence of holy syllables create a vibration that helps you to move into whatever you want to achieve, if there is the adding of powers or the silencing of the thinking process. The moment we stop thinking, the moment we can experience the space between two thoughts, is the entry into the awareness of who we are and what it is that we are. And the thing is, there are so many techniques, there are so many philosophies, there are so many schools of thought that are available out there, that everyone listening to this conversation has their own likes and dislikes. So everyone has to find for themselves, I like this approach or I like that approach. A Muslim, for instance, if I talk to some Muslim people, then if they are, and then again depends on which of the two sides they are involved, and whether they're traditional or whether they are going beyond, where they go to the holy people of the tradition, and then they can do zikr. Zikr is nothing but the mantra or the pulling of the word. And you see, you don't even need to know the holy words. You can just say one, 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 or any other word, any word that you like. The repetition just of this one, one, which will allow you to become more aware of the space between your thoughts. And then you just become aware of that fraction of, and now there's a message popping up: quit holding yourself up. We're holding ourselves up through our thinking process. So anything that helps you to calm your thinking process, you cannot force yourself to not think, because then the thoughts will impress themselves very, very strongly onto you, and you get lost in a sea, and even in anger, because it causes resistance. So
Absolutely. You've got to, I mean, that quietening down, Lothar, has, I mean, I find I've been painting. And I've been doing my mandalas. Last year I started, and now painting on the wall here, or even just walking in nature is a great
yeah,
one for me. And not plugged in, not with headphones in, literally just silence and just in my own, to quieten everything down. And it's training. Hey, you're literally like going to run for a marathon. You actually have to consciously quieten. I've had to consciously quieten myself down every day, and I can't imagine starting my days. Everything quietens down. Hey, like everything quietens down.
because that allows in the moment that impression to come up, whether it comes from the heart or the mind, the brain, what have you, whatever the technique or the technology of physical or mental or emotional pathways of electricity, of chemical explosions within our physicality creates that stimulus of then happy, because happy is nothing but a chemically based or induced experience within the physical form. So what happens when we don't have a physical form anymore, or we dilapidate it to such a point where, we cannot feel it inside the body, because the brain is, what have you, what then? What is life, and what is a life? What is a life within us? So therefore, also to notice, to learn to notice, all right, there is somebody speaking, who is aware of the one speaking, who is aware of the thought as it arises, who is aware of the space before a thought arises. And then eventually you come to the experience of who you really are. And then you find you're completely and utterly connected with all and everything. But as long as you are thinking and feeling and acting, we are individualizing ourselves, and we're trying to make sense and importance. And these days we have so many business opportunities. You're in a lockdown in South Africa. We may be moving, well, we're partially moving back into lockdown in Germany because of some localized re-emerging of the COVID-19, and because of local behavior of people, but not a full lockdown like it is in India and in South Africa at this point. You see, the lockdown can be an experience for a lock-in. And when I noticed that I can actually lock in and I can lock into, I can connect with the inner experience, then I can lock out. I can lock myself out of the prison of being confined. And then of course, being confined in a space can be traumatizing, but it can be freeing. And it's all on the mindset. It's all on how I'm seeing things, and how strong am I, and how courageous am I to even without any food. What is surviving? And it's that experience is available to each and every one of us at every moment. And the big secret is how to connect with that. And so on your path of your development, your story, you've gone through so many different phases. If somebody who met Suzie 5 years ago, and then Suzie 3 years ago, and Suzie 1 year ago, and Suzie now, would say, hey, Suzie, you completely contradict yourself from year to year. One day you say this, the next day you say that, and then you change colors, and then you go for ones, and then you go for this, that, and the next thing. When can I finally trust you and your message that I can arrive at home in my own beingness, with your guidance? And then you can say, ta-da! I am happily sharing my experience, and I must honestly say it is my experience. And the more true and authentic I am in my experience, the more it vibrates from the heart. It just radiates without any attachment. No need for you to like me, or need to like me, or need to want me, or need to get something from me, what have you. But basically service. how can I serve life in one way without being attached to, that's crazy again. Service or seva is so important, but without the need, which is, remember, I had my charity for 15 years in Nigeria. It really gave me a beautiful sidekick story to my life, because suddenly I was important and people viewed me differently, because here I am selflessly giving to people in Africa, you know, and the team did it and Adama did it, not me. But it did something to my mind and to the view of who I think I am. You know, everyone said, oh, fantastic, you are giving back to life. You are doing something wonderful and important and meaningful. And then when the physical aspect of charity stopped, because Adama was pregnant and had a baby, and also the whole thing changes after some time, and the subject changes, you know. And she said to me, let's change from diabetes and hypertension, from the medical aspect of charity, now to move into women empowerment, you know. And at the same time, then there is another level. Then I embarked on the journey with the 12 blessings, when suddenly I'm at home and sending out energies from my home, from my being, to the rest of the world, and not only to the world, not only to humanity and life on planet Earth, but to the planet itself, and then to the sun, and then to you know, blessing the galaxy, and beyond, finally coming to the point, blessing on, if you will, God or the creator or the absolute. You know, who am I to bless the absolute? Only one who is the one can bless the one. So that would mean I am the one. Well, somebody would say, Lothar, looking at you the way I see you and the way I see you behaving in your everyday life, how can you be God, you know? Because most of the women, when they deal with me, they say, oh my God. And I, of course, I always say, I'd be happy to be a God. You see, but God dwells within you as you know. So this conversation might sound like a big, what are you actually saying? You know, can you come to a point that I can use so I can be happy? But because the umbrella, if you open the umbrella of possibilities, is so huge and so vast. There's so many spokes of the umbrella that lead to the main part of the umbrella that you're holding in your hand, right? So which is the correct one? And this is where each and every one of you listening and watching this have to find out for yourselves. And hopefully that frequency, that being of love that comes from Suzie and then comes from me, and your own light, your own love that's radiating from within as you listen and watch, and then take it from there. And what the technique will be, what the inspiration will be, I can talk about all different kinds of yoga traditions. I can talk about the Great White Brother. We can talk about ETs. We never even touched ETs. The whole ET story concerning this planet Earth.
That's like
absolutely
I
fascinating.
know they are wonderful conversations. We've had such conversations that are just, I mean, whoever is listening to this, there is such a big world out there. And I had no idea, Lothar, that the journey as humans and as Suzie born and where I am now, and as you say, morphing over the last few years. I had no idea life was about this and consciousness. And I mean, it's now so exciting to actually wake up every
you know, it's
day.
really unfair. You know what's unfair?
Why?
You know what's really, really unfair?
Tell me.
Can you hear me? My iPad pods are dying right now. What's unfair is I see you playing with your hair. You're taking your hand, moving through the hair, you know, the abundance on your head, and you're playing with it, and you're the goddess is moving. And I'm thinking, fuck, where's my hair? I can't put my hand in my hair. And if I want my hand in my hair, you know, I need to do this, you know. That's not fair. That's just
well,
not
I
fair.
can. Because I
You're
can.
so beautiful. You can say so beautiful. You're so awesome. You're so beautiful.
Oh, I love
I
you,
hope this conversation does inspire some thought, to go into beyond thought, to go into stillness, and then to experience the innocence of your being, of who you really are. And I will do this.
There you can see Lothar's hairstyle. His hair shine. You see, my top of my head can't shine like Lothar, so he shines in the dark. I don't, because I've got lots of hair. Are you there? Look at you. So,
yeah,
you know, we can talk for hours. We can talk for hours and hours and hours, which we do. And I really wanted to do this call on consciousness, on awakening, on what is going on. And I know it's kind of like our level, which is probably a little bit higher than a person who is, you know, having all these emotions that's going on in them, and there's so much online, and there's so much that one can, you know, people you can lock into and listen to and get guidance from as well. But the main thing, and you being a really, really, really big part of my beingness and finding or remembering who I am, and the whole awakening part of meeting Suzie has been an incredibly powerful journey within my story, for me. You know, everybody, as you say, has their own stories. And I found that the moment this all started happening, if I went online, I was directed to the right energy source of what felt right with me. And I would start watching things that resonated with me. And it took me down the cookie trail, follow the yellow brick road, to the next one, to the next person. So I have, you know, set handful of key people that I follow around the world that have, there's so much out there to go looking. And there's nothing wrong. I think the big thing was just think there was nothing wrong with me. Everyone called me this fairy or this something gone like dilly with her. But it was not. It's the path of beingness. And because we've been in a society that it's been not taught, it's been hidden, not exposed, and now it's coming out of, actually, we're not robots. We are beings, and there are unbelievable people out there, and teachers and wise counsel out there for one to start their cookie trail of finding, and then you find the Lothars.
Yeah, do I want AI or do I want DI?
Being intelligent.
Do I want artificial intelligence or do I want divine intelligence?
Divine, DI or being, yes, absolutely. And it's a, you know, for the first time in my life, and you know this, getting to know my being and coming into who I am, Suzie is, it's exciting to be alive in these times. Like it is, it's so exciting. It's like, I've got to know, if I can live for another 200 years, I'm in, pick me. Because life hasn't even, I mean, life is really just getting started now. It's just...
Don't go into this multi-level marketing in the network marketing. I'm putting my finger up. I'm putting my finger up.
Life is now. It's new beginnings. It's beginning. It doesn't
get started. The journey is started way back.
Exactly.
In the moment of now. And so it is always, there is no beginning and there is no end. And this is another aspect that is utterly crazy because we don't experience it this way, being in a physical form. But we manifest it by making these kinds of, speaking these kinds of sentences.
I know, but that's another whole call that you and I are going to talk through, because the power of words, I want a conversation with you. And you've taught me of what to say, what not to say, and be very careful of it.
And then we will have a conversation with, we're going to have Vital there, we're going to have Tahir there, we're going to have some others. We're going to have a group conversation of all those that you have connected with, and then share this from the same time frame and space on the internet. We're going to have a conversation that will have depth, that will have a lot of laughter, and that will have moments of silence.
Yeah, exactly. So right now, I'm going to end off in silence and say thank you, Lothar, in that moment for teaching me or reminding me of the power of now and the presence now, which is where I reconnected with my being in that silence and in that quiet, which I will take forward into my life now, because it is part of my day and part of my being, that karma, to get us through these next times and to become that karma and to become that still within. And that's where I'm finding my purpose is coming from that. Yeah, that I had to go back now in order to go forward. And it's a whole different energy field, and it's a whole different life, and it's a whole different being in this body, and it's a whole different body at the moment. It's everything is turned upside down, but the right way around. Finally.
Yeah. And it's going
you.
to unfold. Yeah, it's going to unfold in so many more ways and over the next few years. I don't know when I'm going to exit my body. Could be anybody, any moment now. Could still take some time. That's not a threatening expression or statement. It can happen.
No, I'm not threatened either. All I know is that you better not come and haunt me, hey? You're gonna see these little glowing lights coming in the night.
You know, even my light finger is really, really cool.
I'm gonna have to lock you away in a ghost cupboard somewhere.
Absolutely.
Lothar, thank you. I so look forward to the next show. And there's so much, you know, as I say, you've been such an inspiration to me. It would have been a very interesting journey without you, but you know, I'm on a big path in my world, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart with your wisdom and your craziness and your friendship and lots of laughing we've had. Lots of laughing.
Okay. From around the world, huh?
From around the world, Lothar in Frankfurt and Suzie Sayz in Cape Town. You're the best.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Soon.
Thank you for being with us.
Okay, cheers.
Bye.